It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to the Smart Infrastructure Summit. I'm told this is the first time we're doing a conference, a summit like this. When I was asked to chair this conference a few days ago, I was not very sure as to what my role should be. But then I looked at the list of the eminent speakers there and I realized that I don't really have much to do. So I thought I will just quickly share with you a few anecdotes that I have been uh, privileged or let's say it has been my misfortune to be part of. And that's how we have learned a lot over the years here and set the tone for this conference. Uh, Way back in the year 2003, late 2003 and early 2004, I was doing an energy management program there at that time for a building. In those days, we used to call it performance contract or shared energy savings. This was a mixed-use building, and we had air-cooled chillers on the rooftop. The building also had a fantastic chiller plant manager. But unfortunately, as is the reality, the chiller plant manager was not being utilized to its full effect, and therefore energy efficiency was always a challenge on those buildings. Now, in order to be able to achieve energy savings on that building, we used to keep working with the chiller manufacturer. We used to come to site every now and then to change the programming or the logic of working of the chiller plant itself. And it was very curious for me, and I found it very laborious and very inefficient way of doing things that to change even small programming requirements, you actually had to come to the site and you had to get the expert to come there. And during one of my interactions with the technician who'd come there and sit with his laptop in the machine room, I asked him at the time, quite innocently, I had no clue about what I was looking for. I asked him that, can you not do this sitting in your office? Can we not put a SIM card or a mobile phone into the chiller plant manager and send the instructions rather than having to come here? Because traveling to a site always defeats the purpose of energy efficiency. And the response that time was, no, we don't have the technology yet. What I did not realize at that time is that I was actually looking for remote monitoring. I was looking for M2M, and I was eventually looking for Internet of Things. In the next couple of projects in a 2 years' time, we did get into remote monitoring, but that remote monitoring was through the good old days dial-up connection. So you send an instruction to the chiller plant, and then you have to keep staring at the screen and wait for 5 to 10 minutes for the instruction to actually take effect and then see the impact of what you're trying to do. Of course, nowadays, we pretty much are able to control whatever we want from anywhere in the world. So this is the kind of transition that I have personally seen the last 12 to 15 years in the UAE itself. So smart has become the new paradigm of anything and everything. So everything, initially it started off with Internet of Things, then it became Internet of Everything, then we have software as a service, and now anything as a service is what is where we are reaching. So now obviously when we talk of smart, we are talking of a multitude of things that range from micro at building levels, device levels. So we are looking for smart devices all the time, smart thermostats like Nest and so on and so forth. Then it goes to the entire building. From there we go talk of smart infrastructure, and then we talk of smart cities and eventually smart planet. And we have different expert organizations who are involved in different facets of this smart in the entire value chain, starting from the micro to the macro. Now, where did this all start from? This essentially largely was driven by the challenge of climate change that we are facing today. And this is one of the environmentalists whose this particular statement I found very inspiring, that the challenge of climate change is so severe and so near upon us that we do not have time to plan out our strategy to counter climate change. Closer home, UAE has one of the highest ecological footprint in the world. Now, this is the bad news. The good news is that there are two good news, in fact, to that the UAE's per capita ecological footprint is reducing over the years, and I'll show you something on that. And also, in terms of the impact of UAE's ecological footprint at a global level is not significantly high. However, what UAE is able to achieve today is that UAE has become a smorgasbord or a test bench for new technologies that are coming in. People are trying out new technologies here, and that is being escalated across the world. What we also realize is that the traditional way of fighting climate change is not going to work. It's too slow, too cumbersome, too costly, and too inefficient. And therefore, there's a study that you can download from the internet called Saving the Climate at the Speed of Light. This is a joint initiative between WWF and the ETNO, the European Telecommunication Network Organization, and where they have clearly spelled out that the only way we're going to fight climate change in a reasonably satisfactory manner is to utilize ICT. That is the only way we can scale up the battle against climate change. This is again a brief statistic that has been generated by WWF and Environment Wildlife Society in Abu Dhabi. And this is where we look at the per capita annual ecological footprint of different countries. So UAE's annual per capita ecological footprint has been dropping steadily. I unfortunately do not have the latest statistics, but hopefully we'll listen to some of the speakers today later on and see if we can come up with some numbers there. And it has gone down from around 12 hectares. This is essentially the amount of land from the planet to be able to satisfy his annual needs and requirements. And this has come down from 12 hectares in 2006 to about 8 hectares in 2014. You may not be able to see the details, but this is where UAE ranks as number 3 in the world. Ahead of UAE is Qatar and Kuwait. The study before this, which was a 2006 statistic, listed UAE as having the highest per capita ecological footprint. And this is the world average. So there's a long way for the UAE to go as well. And I think some of the clean energy strategies that UAE is putting in place would go a long way in terms of achieving these goals. Now, if you look at the most important point to note here is that the biggest contribution to the ecological footprint comes from energy consumption, and purely because the energy generated in this part of the world is largely fossil fuel based. And therefore, clean energy strategy of Dubai 2050 will largely mitigate this ecological footprint of the UAE. So that's as far as the environmental component or the environmental aspect of sustainability is concerned. Now let's look at some of the economic aspects of sustainability. This is the latest report from World Economic Forum, the Global Competitiveness Index. And UAE has been steadily improving its ranking there. In the latest report of 2016-2017, UAE's rank is 16, up 1 place from 17 in the past 1 year. This is where UAE stands. Now, what makes UAE very competitive globally? Obviously, these are some of the framework against which each country is measured across the world. There are almost all countries are covered, barring a few, purely because of the fact that data is not available from those countries or those economies are not yet well established. And one of the biggest contributors to UAE's significantly high ranking is the infrastructure or the quality of infrastructure that UAE currently has, that UAE has developed over the last few years. And it is interesting to note that the UAE Vision 2021 actually has one of the key components or key result areas as infrastructure. So these are the details. Again, these are reports that are easily downloadable from the internet. Even if you're not able to note down things from here, you should be able to access this. And that's one of the elements of smart, because knowledge is today all pervasive. So these are the 6 countries of the GCC listed here, and UAE obviously is at the top in the GCC in terms of the various facets that go into making it competitive. In terms of infrastructure, UAE ranks 4th in the world, although UAE's overall global competitive rank is only 16. What is notable here is that although UAE ranks number 4, the other countries in the GCC are lagging significantly behind, and obviously that also means that there is significant opportunity to improve those areas, therefore contribute to the competitive or the business environment as far as smart is concerned. And for your information, as far as the UAE Vision 2021 is concerned, the key result area of overall infrastructure quality, the key sponsor for that is the Ministry of Infrastructure Development, who I believe would be speaking later on in the day at this summit as well. Okay, very quickly to wrap up. So how do we deliver smart city? There are 2 paradigms that I essentially look at, because my background is real estate as well as energy management, and essentially making sure that the ecological footprint of a building throughout the life cycle is actually as minimum as possible. So more than looking at the design element of it, which is obviously most important, but I think we are pretty much up there based on the different regulations that the governments are putting in place in the UAE particularly. So for me, there is one paradigm. The first paradigm that we need to look at is that if we want to be smart, we have to talk smart not only at the micro level, which is at the individual device level, but we also have to look at talking smart at the whole city level. And everything has to be congruent with each other or work together seamlessly with each other. So it's not just about taking care of the pence, but it's also about taking care of the pounds. The next paradigm, which is important, is the design construction development cycle. And therefore, if we want to make sure that everything delivers on the components of smart, we have to make sure that all these facets are taken care of right from the design stage to the entire life cycle operation and maintenance of a project. And this is all pervasive. We are not only talking of buildings, but infrastructure as well. The other interesting element is that the existing infrastructure globally is a major portion or more significant than the infrastructure that is coming online. And that is where if we are to make bigger impact or greater impact in terms of sustainability or smart, we need to look at going and fixing the problems that we already have on hand, ranging from power generation right up to the building operation and maintenance, and as well as the infrastructure. And that's why we see retrofit projects like LED lighting replacement for traffic lights, for example. And that has the potential to reduce the lighting consumption in traffic in the road network by 90% or even more. So that's at the industry level. People at developer level who are looking at smart and trying to integrate a lot of smart elements into their projects. At the government level also, we have all these various initiatives at the UAE level as well as Dubai level. And all of these are literally talking about, they're not really technically independent of each other, and there is a significant synergy between UAE Vision 2021, Dubai Plan 2021, Integrated Energy Strategy, and so on and so forth. So this is the way the government is actually trying to promote smart and sustainability by creating the right environment for industry as well as the end users and developers. My personal favorite, of course, is the Dubai Future Accelerators Program, which is driven by entities like DIWA, Dubai Municipality, RTA, Dubai Police, Dubai Holding, as well as Knowledge and Human Development Authority. And they are promoting companies and startups which come up with fantastic technologies, which are next generation technologies. They are sponsoring them. They are creating the enabling environment for them to come up with the right prototypes that can actually go to market. So this is something, Dubai Future Accelerators Program is something that I would advise that everybody follows keenly. Just to wrap up, again, when we keep talking about smart, smart means different things to different people. So if I go and talk to a chiller manufacturer, his interpretation of smart is different. From the ICT, if I go and talk to the telcos, then they talk smart in a different, from a different perspective altogether. So I thought of looking up at, coming up from, based on my personal experience, that what smart should ideally be. Again, these are not cast in stone definitions. These are, again, concepts that are open to everybody's own interpretation based on your own experience and expertise. So for me, smart has to start with sustainability. And that is paramount. If a project is not sustainable, and when I talk of sustainability, I'm talking first and foremost of economic sustainability of a project. If a project is not making money, there's hardly any likelihood that anybody is going to talk of environmental sustainability on a project like that. I think telcos and various other ICT companies are very closely involved in monitoring, maintaining, and managing smart assets and making them smart. The other component that stems from A is that while we are designing for smart, and in many cases we are operating for smart, they tend to become individual standalone initiatives. There's hardly any benchmarking, there's hardly any assessment that goes on a continuous manner that happens on these kind of projects. And for me, the most important thing to make everything smart or sustainable has to start with accountability. If a building owner is not accountable to his occupants, if the traffic authority is not accountable to the people who drive vehicles on their roads, then smart or sustainability becomes a challenge. So holding people accountable to what they do and delivering the right environment is most crucial. The other element, the final element, is that while we keep talking of smart and sustainability, there is a tendency to stop at a certain stage. If this is required by regulatory authorities, for example, a building certification or a building management system that becomes mandatory, once I put that in place, I typically tend to forget that we need to also continue to operate and manage those equipment in a continuous manner through the entire life cycle of the building. So therefore, every project, whether it's building or infrastructure or a power plant, needs to continuously have targets, and those targets need to continuously evolve because technology continuously upgrades, environmental requirements change, and things are improving all the time. So this to me encapsulates when I talk of smart to different people. So with that, I will open the conference up. Thank you very much for your attention.